Hello, and welcome to the All Things Mystery Podcast. I'm Sarah Morgan. Today, we're going to cover a missing persons case out of the Louisville, Kentucky area from 2019. I mentioned this in our preview for the case, but this is the Where is Andrea Knabel case. A little background on Andrea. At the time she disappeared, she was 37 years old. She would be 40 now. Just celebrated a birthday with her sister Erin on the same day. She's a mom of two boys living in the Louisville, Kentucky area. She was kind of down on her luck during the time of her disappearance. She is the oldest of three sisters. She has a sister named Sarah and a sister named Erin, and she's the mom of two boys who were with their fathers on the night she disappeared. According to her sister Erin, Andrea was the fun mom. She had all the neighborhood kids over and was always willing to help others. She was definitely Erin's motivator and encourager. She also was a volunteer investigator for the group Missing in America and searched for those who were missing. She had a marketing degree from the University of Louisville, and she had been working at Humana as an analyst about a year before she went missing, but unfortunately got laid off as part of the mass layoff at Humana. As a result of that layoff, she became evicted from her apartment and didn't have a job, so she found herself living at her mother's house at the time of her disappearance. She also had some car trouble and left her car on the side of the road, and ultimately that car was hit by another car and totaled, so she also had no vehicle at the time. So that's a little bit about Andrea and her background. We're going to talk now about some of the players in this case, the people, and then we'll talk about the timeline. So again, Andrea was the oldest sister. She had a sister named Sarah, who's a real estate agent and model. And Sarah had a fiance named Ethan Bates, who owned his own construction company. Her dad's name is Mike, and her mom has not really been involved in the social media aspect or press aspect of the case, but she is also involved in the background, helping in this endeavor to find her. There's also the group Missing in America. The founder's name is Nancy Schaefer, who is friends with Andrea. And in fact, it's reported that Andrea was the maid of honor in Nancy's wedding to her now ex-husband. Another close friend of Andrea was Suzette Rodriguez, who is also in the Missing in America volunteer group. And there's a private investigator named Tracy Leonard, who Nancy ended up involving in the case to help find Andrea once she went missing, and also was friends with Andrea. Tracy has a brother named Ted Leonard, and both of them continue to help the family investigate the events of that evening. There's also the Louisville Police Department, who have two detectives in their missing persons department. They still consider this case to be open and active, not a cold case, which is good. Also, there has been, as I mentioned in the preview, a docuseries by Discovery Plus and Investigation Discovery that was released. And some of the facts of that docuseries may be in question, according to the family. One of the folks mentioned in that docuseries is Matt Ray, who is a friend of Andrea and an alleged drug dealer. So going back to the evening when Andrea disappeared, it was actually the evening of August 12th, 2019, when the family had kind of gathered at Andrea's mom's house for a Chinese dinner. Present were Andrea, her mom, her sister Sarah and fiance Ethan, and Andrea's nephew. The family were very concerned about Andrea at the time as she was going through some personal and professional problems, as mentioned. The family were encouraging her to take some action to do better with her current situation. Some of that may have involved getting a job. She was also having some health problems. She was concerned actually about her face, where she had a rash that apparently was infected and wanted to get that checked out. But in any case, it seems like Andrea got into an argument with her family that evening, maybe becoming overwhelmed with the amount of advice and coaching they were giving her, and she went upstairs to cool off to her room instead of finishing her dinner. Her family was concerned maybe she was having a mental health issue and perhaps even using drugs, as she had started hanging out with some shady friends, according to the family. Later that evening, Ethan offered to take her to McDonald's since she did not have any dinner or didn't get to finish her dinner. So around 9:15, 9:20 p.m. that evening, Andrea and her nephew and Ethan, who was driving, went to McDonald's. They left McDonald's around 9:40 p.m., and Ethan then drove her to Kentucky One Urgent Care to get her face looked at, as she had a rash, as I mentioned, or some kind of infection potentially on her face. Ethan and the nephew then went back home, and Andrea stayed there until around 11 p.m. She needed a ride home, as was mentioned, because she didn't have a car, and Andrea's mom had offered her a rideshare gift card of some sort, but when Andrea tried to use it, it didn't work. So she ended up having to get a lift, and she was ultimately dropped off at 11:44 p.m. near her mom's house. Now later, Erin says it may have actually been closer to her house, but we know that she was dropped off. Andrea and her sister Erin were very close, and Andrea wanted to vent to Erin about what had happened at dinner, so she ended up going over to Erin's house. Now, if she was dropped off close enough, she walked from where she was dropped off or from the mom's house. It's reported it was about 20-minute walk from Erin's house to the mom's house. So at the time, Erin and her friend were sitting on Erin's porch having a glass of wine and talking when Andrea walked up. They talked for a while, and then ultimately Erin decided that Andrea needed to go back home to their mom's house and get some sleep, and she agreed to drive her back to her mom's house. And that happened around 1 a.m. However, Andrea found that the door to her mom's house was locked when she got there, and she didn't have a key. So this kind of became a point of concern among some folks who were familiar with the case, thinking that Sarah and Ethan intentionally locked her out that evening. We don't know for sure, but we do know that because the house was being renovated, the locks had recently been changed and Andrea was not given a key. Now, maybe that was intentional because of the family's concerns about who she was hanging out with and some of her activities. But in any case, Andrea found herself locked out of the house. So she walked back to Erin's house. When she got back, Erin said she did not want her to spend the night because she had to work the next day, and also her kids were home and they were sleeping on the couch already, so Andrea really wouldn't have a place to sleep. She told Andrea, just go back to Mom's, get some sleep, and I'll call Mom and Sarah to make sure they let you in this time. So the path that Andrea would have taken to get back to her mom's, if you want to look it up on the internet, was walking from her sister Erin's house down Fincastle. She would have cut across the walking bridge, crossed Nightingale to Curlew, then Crossbill to their mom's house, which was on Chickadee. Her phone last pinged between 1:30 to 2 a.m. when she began calling friends to pick her up. The pings came from the Louisville Audubon Park neighborhood, which is where her mom lived, so that makes sense. It was reported that there was a non-working car in the driveway. Might have been Andrea's car that was hit, I'm not sure, but she could have potentially sat in that car calling or texting friends to come get her that evening. We do know that she attempted to FaceTime Suzette from the Missing in America group at around 2:12 a.m. Unfortunately, Suzette missed that call. And ultimately, the last ping from Andrea's phone was at 6:30 a.m., and after that it was either shut off or the battery died, but it never pinged again. The next morning, Andrea's mom sent a text to the group chat asking if anyone had seen her, and no one had. Her sister Erin was worried and also felt guilty since she didn't let her stay there the night before and tried to call Andrea's phone and text her, and then she began trying to reach out to her friends to see if anyone had heard from her.
Andrea came over and she just told me she was upset about everything going on. She was upset about her face and that, they had argued earlier that night. And so we kind of hung out and she vented to me, and I told her maybe you should just go home and rest it off and everything will be fine in the morning. She left, and it's the last time I saw her.
Several days later, Erin decided it was time to file a missing persons report, which she did, and the police quickly showed up to her mom's house looking for her or her phone or any evidence of what may have happened to her. Likely they had to get a search warrant. I don't have the details on that, but the house was searched without finding Andrea or her phone. There was no evidence of foul play found in the home. The police were given her laptop, and because of her association with the Missing in America group, Nancy Schaefer had asked all of the folks in that group to turn on their Google location history to keep a log of their movements while investigating or searching cases. And as a result of that, the police and the private investigators were able to get some trace of her movements. So about a week after the disappearance, Andrea's friend Nancy Schaefer, who founded the Missing in America group, contacted Tracy Leonard, the private investigator that she had worked with for years. Tracy was also given Andrea's laptop. And what they discovered as part of the Google location timeline was that she was at her sister Erin's until 1:30 a.m. the second time. At 1:54 a.m., she made it back to her mom's house. At 3:53 a.m., the phone or the Google locator was still active but not showing movement. So again, maybe she was there in the car or backyard or something. And at 6:31, a new location dot was logged, but it wasn't clear where. And again, the family members who were in the home that evening claimed they never heard her knocking on the door to be let in that night. Andrea's sister, Sarah, and fiancé Ethan were interviewed twice and then refused to meet with police again, probably because they had no more information to share. But what did alarm some folks is that they moved back to Lexington, Kentucky, after they were finished renovating the house. However, that's not suspicious, as that is where they lived. Again, Sarah was a real estate agent, and Ethan owned his own construction business in that area. And also, both fathers of Andrea's children were questioned and ruled out as suspects. There were rumors, however, that Ethan wiped the couple's phones clean the night she went missing. Erin's been asked about this and does not know why. 7 weeks after Andrea went missing, her dad Mike contacted the police and said that nothing they told him would happen to try to find his daughter had happened, so he was quite frustrated. He and Erin have continued working with Tracy Leonard and his brother Ted and other volunteers to try to find her in the meantime. The case didn't get the press attention it should have back then, potentially, according to Erin, because of the circumstances in Andrea's life at the time when she went missing. And that's what's the most frustrating to Erin, is hearing the rumors and folks thinking this is somehow related to her circumstances at the time, which it may be, but shouldn't matter. The ultimate goal here is to try to find Andrea. One of the players or people involved in this case is Joe Fanicciulli, who is the boyfriend of Nancy Schaefer. And apparently, as part of the docuseries and some of the other discussions that have happened, an ex-boyfriend of Andrea told Joe that she was using and selling drugs. Now, this is alleged that she was using drugs and potentially had took over her ex-boyfriend's drug business when he was incarcerated. This ex-boyfriend also told Joe that she allegedly paid a supplier of drugs with counterfeit money, and that may have led to her possibly being abducted and held or something bad happening to her as a result of that. Andrea's sister and her dad Mike are bombarded with questions about the case, and sometimes it's people who act as if they care, and once they get the answers from Andrea and her dad about what problems were going on at the time, they then use those answers to not care anymore, or to bombard the family with further questions and insults and suspicion. The big question is, did the police not take this case seriously, knowing that Andrea had some problems at the time? We don't know for sure, but it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah. Some examples are like, why didn't Andrea stay with me that night? Like, if I could turn back time, obviously I would have done something differently. But at the time, she was participating in a lot of behaviors that, I didn't approve of, like things that I wouldn't do, things that I wouldn't want my family to be around,
Right.
I love my sister, and it's hard for me to even say that, because to me, she was an angel, she was an amazing sister, despite any struggle she had in that one moment. She's done so many amazing things with her life, and I feel like she was just, having a low point right at that moment. So it hurts seeing her being remembered as like someone who was missing and someone who had problems, just because there's so much more to her than that. But with that being said, those problems were a part of the reason why all of us were having somebody, we wanted to help her, but not in the way that she was ready she wasn't ready to receive the help that we wanted to give, basically.
I mentioned in the preview some Facebook pages that Erin has either started or taken over. One is called Andrea Knabel Missing in Kentucky Case Discussion. Erin now is a moderator of that group where she posts social media updates, requests for help, any tips that may come in are talked about in that group. So if you want more information, you can investigate and join that group. There's also a group called Where is Andrea Knabel, which Erin was the moderator of as well. And they've moved a lot of the things to that group. There is also a group called Finding Andrea that was started by Nancy Schaefer, but it seems as if the family have kind of fallen out with Nancy in the meantime, and they believe that she is not really being helpful in finding Andrea and is more interested in becoming famous. Please use the hashtag #WhereIsAndreaKnabel if you post or repost anything on social media, as that will help keep track of the posts. There is also a GoFundMe that the family has started to try to recoup some of their costs, and you can find that Where is Andrea Knabel on GoFundMe. The family does trust Tracy and Ted Leonard, who are the private investigators who've been helping try to find Andrea, although in the docuseries they were made to look quite suspicious after their office burned down, which was later determined to have literally nothing to do with this case. A lot of people believe that Sarah and Ethan are suspects as well, that they're not helping find her, but Erin definitely does not believe that they are involved, and just maybe they wanted to go back to their lives and not be part of the press or the front-facing social media effort to find their sister, but they do care about her. In case you have a tip or know something about this case that you want to report, there are several ways to contact the investigators and authorities. The Louisville Metro Police Department can be reached at 502-574-7120. They have 2 detectives there in the Missing Persons Department, again, working on the case. There's also the crime hotline, 502-574-5673. And there's an anonymous tip line, 855-746-0846. You can also reach Tracy Leonard, the investigator who owns the Confidential Investigative Agency, at 502-618-9337. If you know something, say something. The family are desperate 2 years later, almost 3 years later now, to find their sister and daughter. Anything that you know could help this case. So come on, true crime fans, we need your help. Let's find Andrea Knabel, or at least find out what happened. We're praying that she is still alive and well, but we need your help to locate her. Thanks so much for listening today. You can find us on our Instagram account, All Things Mystery, our Facebook page, All Things Mystery, and our YouTube channel, All Things Mystery Podcast. We look forward to hearing from you, and please help us find Andrea Knabel.